Hi Agrima, how are you doing?
Hi, Prashant. I'm great. Thank you.
And ISB is almost about to end, so must have been
Yeah,
great year almost.
yeah, I'm feeling nostalgic already. But yeah, it's been a great year.
And probably vacations or more of holiday mood now.
Yeah, a little bit. We still have 2 terms to go, so yeah, just trying to make the most of it now.
Interesting. And you were a YLP candidate,
Yeah.
so of course let me first introduce what YLP is all about, the Young Leaders Program, and because candidates normally assume that if you're applying to ISB or if you're looking to get into ISB, you need at least 2 years of experience. But
Mm-hmm.
YLP being the channel through which they can potentially apply in their pre-final or final year itself. Just that
Yeah.
they cannot join immediately, which means they will have to wait till they complete about 21 months of experience.
Yeah.
But they do have an admit letter in hand, and they do have a lot of comfort and peace of
Yeah.
mind that they are going to join ISB, and the next 2 years they can focus on their career.
Yeah.
And of
Absolutely.
course, the three stages, so stage one, stage two, and stage three. Stage one essentially is an initial filtering where GMAT is not required. So you apply with just an essay and your basic profile, college acads, GPA, etc. Whereas stage two, I mean, if you qualify through stage one, you move to stage two, where you are able to present, or you're required to present your GMAT score plus whatever additional requirements in terms of the essays.
Yeah.
And then if everything goes all right and you are invited for an interview, which is a stage three, then you go through the interview,
Yes.
and it's a personal interview. You go through it, and then you get an accept or reject.
Yes.
So,
Absolutely.
so yes, that's the process, and that's been there for some time, even since you
Yeah.
applied. And
Yeah. That was way back in 2016. So
right.
yeah.
And the application opens in December typically, and the stage one deadline is in March. Subsequently, stage two
Yeah.
followed in August, and then thereafter the interviews and results. Great. So, of course, understanding that not everyone knows about YLP, and when students are in college, they're looking at CAT and the IIMs being their dream
Yeah.
school. So, how did you get interested in the YLP in the first place?
So I think that was an info session in my college that essentially introduced ISB and YLP to me,
Okay.
and that's how I initially got interested. Of course, then the reason I looked at YLP was because I was interested in applying to ISB because I'd heard so much about it in terms of its international faculty, the diverse cohort, the learning experience, etc. that ISB offers, and the fact that it looks at everyone's profile very holistically rather than other B schools in India that probably focus a little bit more on a particular exam and then go forward from there. And particularly why YLP was very interesting to me was, like you mentioned, that it gave me a lot of comfort knowing that I'll have an admit in hand while I'm doing my undergrad, and then I'll have about 1.5, like 2 years, to to work, really figure out what it is that I want, and experiment and really just go about, like, so that when I go ahead and do my MBA, I will know exactly what I want, what I don't want, while having that sort of a comfort that I don't have to give another exam while I'm working. So I
Right.
think that was a real benefit that I saw with the YLP program, and that's essentially why I applied.
Great. But then, of course, to get into the program, the average class experience is over 4 years, and people get to talk about, I mean, through the regular PGP application, people get to talk about their work, about their professional experiences. Whereas when
Yeah.
you applied as a YLP candidate, obviously you didn't have any experience. So, what
Mm-hmm.
was your approach to presenting your profile? And if you could also add a bit about your own profile, the college, and your GPAs, and what you think could have worked for you.
Of course, I mean, there's one thing that ISB does look at, which is consistency. So, I mean, having a good academic record does help you. So, like I mentioned earlier, that they look at your profile very holistically. So, GMAT or a GRE is not a make or break thing. What what I thought was that ISB was a place that really valued the kind of person I am. someone who's very enthusiastic, someone who's done a lot of things. And that is something that worked in my favor. And apart from that, I think everyone who applies does have a good profile, does have a story to say, and has something that's relevant to ISP. What becomes important is how to present it in a way in those like 2 to 3 300 word essays. So it's very important to focus on things that are relevant from an admissions point of view. And I think that's where maybe ISP, like that's where ISP Mantra also kind of helped me, because you guys really helped me like look at my own story in a new light and present those points, those aspects of my story in a way that ISP would find most relevant. And apart from that, also during the interview process, being able to talk to someone from admissions who was formerly associated with ISP, I thought that really helped me understand what to talk about, what ISP would be looking at. And I felt that I was much more confident on the day of the interview and during the entire process. So I think that those are the things that worked out for me. And yeah, that's about it.
Right. Of course. I mean, I believe you were able to do a few interviews with a few people on our team who had former
Yeah.
experience with the ISB admissions. So how was your interview experience overall? I mean, because people often talk about their experience being centered around their work experience, but as YLP candidate, you didn't have work experience. So what was your interview all about, and how was it interviewing as a YLP candidate with ISB? What kind of questions were you asked? If you could throw some light there.
Yes, of course. I'm not sure if there's something that they do with YLPs, or I think maybe it's like an ISB culture in general. All the interviewers that I spoke to, as well as my own interview, it was extremely friendly and very relaxed. Like at no point did I feel that I'm being put on the spot. The entire interview process felt more like a conversation than an interview, and they really so I didn't feel like they were trying to grill me into and try to figure out things that I don't want, don't know. Sorry, what I felt was they allowed me to lead the interview, and they were willing to talk about things that I wanted to talk about. So, for example, I wanted to talk about my internship during college. That was something that I felt strongly about. So, they gave me an opportunity to talk about it. But
Right.
once I started with it, they really grilled, like they sort of really went into depth. They asked me like small details. Of course, because I had actually had that kind of an experience, I was able to enjoy that conversation. So the the internships, the kind of experiences that you've spoken about in your essays as well as in your profile is something that they would really focus on to really understand that you have done what you've written that you've done. So of course, because my internship was in finance, a few very basic questions on depreciation, etc., followed. But I'm not sure that if that's sort of like something that they do. Apart from that, another thing that they really focused on was my long term and short term goals,
All right.
where I wanted to be, what I wanted to do, and how ISB would fit in that entire scheme of things. So, having like clarity on what you want and why you're applying to ISB, I think becomes extremely important.
Right. So, of course, the idea of talking more about your internship and what you have done often
Yeah,
is to understand if you've really done it or if you've really done it well, and how much you learn from it. And
yeah,
of course, if you because you had enjoyed your internship, you were able to talk about it.
yeah.
Great. And then you had an admit, and everything was all about celebrating it. But then there was also this 2 year period before you joined ISB.
Yeah.
So how were there opportunities to engage with the school? Was there some support that you received from ISB even when you were not even when you had not joined the program?
Yes, of course. So during the 2 year period before you join ISB, actually, ISB does keep some sort of an engagement with you, and it's actually quite like it is a constant sort of an engagement, because there are 3 learning weekends that we have where ISB essentially calls you to both Hyderabad and the Mohali campuses for the weekends. So that is something. So you go there, you get to experience the campus, you get to see the classrooms, you go around, and And that might not seem like such a big thing, but when you actually come for your course, it becomes really important because you have that sort of, at least you have some sort of a comfort when there is so much uncertainty lying in front of you. So I think that was a great thing that I as a YLP had experienced. Apart from that, because we also have these sessions and some sort of like courses during these YLP weekends, where we get some sort of an exposure into the kind of studying that happens at ISB, because some of these sessions are taken by the faculty that are teaching at ISB. And before these sessions, we also get some sort of like a small project work, which really keeps you engaged, helps you understand what kind of courses, what kind of projects you're going to be doing at ISB, and really judge the kind of competition that is going to be facing you once you are at the school. And apart from that, of course, you will get to interact with people who are studying at ISP at that point, because they are the ones who are going to be taking you around campus, who are going to be showing you. And I think the opportunity to network with fellow YLPs is something that I personally really felt very strongly about. Some of my closest friends still are people that I'd met during the YLP weekends. And in fact, I got an opportunity to switch my jobs because a person whom I met during one of the weekends was able to refer me. So I think even the 2 year like time before you join ISB can be really, really fruitful if you make it so.
Interesting. Of course, like you said, one part is the academic learning or exploring what ISB can offer. But then it's interesting to know that you were able to, or with the YLP admit, directly or indirectly helped you even switch your job.
Yeah.
Great. But in contrast, when you look at your undergrad college where everyone was almost your age, and suddenly you land up in a place where there are people with as much as 20 years of experience. So how did you integrate with the group or adjust to the diversity here?
It is slightly difficult. At least I mean, a lot of people, I felt it personally, and other people that I know also felt a little bit of it. Because there are people who are coming in with like a lot of experience, people who've headed teams, people who've led people much older than you, much more experienced than you. So sometimes, like you feel that you're not being heard enough, or you're not being able to contribute to the class discussions as much. But at these points, it's extremely important to sort of understand that you are there for a reason. You are there because you have something to offer to the school, and of course you need to sort of push through that initial phase where you feel like there are people who have much more to offer than you do, and then just try and learn as much as you can from them, and just go with the flow is all I can say, because being one of the youngest people, we have a lot more enthusiasm, we have a lot more risk taking ability, and we have a lot more to learn. So I think just what worked for me was just going forward with that kind of positivity and having a support system, because uh, so it's very important to really use the diversity that the school offers, be friends with people your age as well as people who are older than you, more experienced than you, and that kind of like a, in totality, that sort of helps you really integrate with everyone.
Right. And probably it was also a period of self discovery and realizing that you have more than what you thought you had in terms of
Exactly.
potential
So
as well
yeah,
as capability.
all of these things together sort of make you push yourself. I think that's what ISB is all about.
Interesting. And probably prepare you for the corporate world out there where you'll anyway be working
Absolutely.
with people very senior to you.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, I think that I miss that. So that is one thing that I learned, because at the end of the day, you would be working with people older than you. And this experience really helps you prepare for that.
Certainly. But beyond integrating with the class and the peer group, of course, ISB curriculum, any curriculum is designed keeping a certain audience on mind, whereas ISB curriculum is also something that is catering to a much wider audience. So how do you think the curriculum suited your learning needs, and what were the opportunities or platforms that you use at ISB, especially when you talk about networking with senior folks?
Do you want me to talk about more of the academic side or more of the like networking side, or because
Probably a bit on both, because on one hand, there is a diverse class out there, and you were able to, so when a faculty walks in, he knows that there's someone with 2 years of experience and someone with 20 years of experience. So so how does the faculty approach this? How is the curriculum designed to cater to the needs of such diverse audience? And beyond that, of course, outside the classroom, what opportunities do you use to network with the senior folks that we talked about?
so academically, I think ISB does understand the kind of diverse cohort that they cater to, and they have designed their curriculum in such a way. So even before we joined ISB, we had math boot camps, we had introduction to finance, etc., so that everyone has basic knowledge, irrespective of the background they're coming from, uh, of the subjects that are going to be taught. And then even at ISP, everything starts from the very basic, even though the progression is quite fast. So everyone has an opportunity to have to sort of get exposure to that subject. And apart from that, because they understand that people here come from various backgrounds, have different levels of experience, we have things like tutorials. The faculty is extremely approachable. Everyone has office hours. You can walk in anytime. The AAs are very approachable. So all of these together, sort of, you know, from a from the school's point of view, all of these really help everyone come at a basic level. And from there, of course, then it depends on how much you know from before and how much you're willing to work at it. And apart from that, even the cohort in general, we have like there were P2P sessions before every finance exam to make sure that people who are CAs, people who have more experience in that particular domain, are can give something to other people who might not have that kind of a thing. So I think all of this combined together really gets everyone together and gets everyone at a point that so that everyone's comfortable. From a networking point of view, I think because like there are so many activities going on at all points in time. There are various club events, there are marquee events, we have solstice, we have ILS, all of these. I think going for these kind of events, just being active and putting yourself out there is the best way to network. When you work with people who are different from you, who have more or less work experience, I think that's when the best kind of networking happens.
Of course, right. And these are, I mean, Solstice, these are great opportunities to network with both current students and alumni.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, when you joined, you were kind of the youngest in the class. You're still young. Doesn't look like you have. You almost have your MBA, but you were among the youngest, certainly in the class. And so, what do you think came as a benefit one when you joined, and were there any specific times when you thought that being young or being with relatively lower experience posed as a challenge?
Yes, of course. So, I mean, being the youngest and having lesser experience in such a class where the average work ex is quite higher, it does come with a set of challenges. For example, like I think I'd mentioned before, that felt, I felt it in some of my study groups, people with like 10 plus years of work experience, they probably thought that my opinion wasn't as relevant as theirs was. So at such times it does frustrate you, but you need to sort of get over it and push yourself further. In the beginning, some of us felt like we didn't have enough practical experience to contribute to the class discussions as much as others did. But that is something that goes away with time. That something that you get over after a particular point in time, because then you gain that sort of confidence and all of that. And finally, I think one more thing that I saw YLP struggle with was showcasing leadership experience during maybe placements, because there are other people who've headed departments, who've led teams, something that YLPs typically haven't done. But at such point, so we need to like be more active during our ISP time. We need to take up initiative. We need to um, have more positions of responsibility in order to showcase that we are equally capable of holding leadership positions and we have that sort of an acumen. So all of these are challenges, but these challenges can be overcome because, like I said, that YLPs tend to be more enthusiastic, and we all of us have more risk-taking ability. For example, during placements, we were we had a lot more opportunity in terms of the kind of companies that we could sit for because, of course, we are not very aligned to a particular domain. So especially for people changing industries,
Okay.
uh, felt that it was easier for YLPs. And of course, a lot of us, since we've not been away from studies for a very long time, coping up academically becomes slightly easier. So I think some of the highest GPA scorers are YLPs. So I think being a YLP comes up with its own set of benefits and challenges.
Right, and of course, I have this is an interesting trend that I have observed as well. A lot of our YLP candidates have been among the best performers academically because you've been in touch. Whereas
Yeah.
talking of placements, of course, last few months, the class has been going through it, and like you said, it's easier to change careers if you're a YLP candidate. It's easier to fit into a more variety of roles and organizations. So probably it comes as an advantage when you're a YLP candidate, or more of an advantage than a disadvantage, right?
Yeah.
Great. Great. And then, of course, I would assume you are already placed now. This is January.
Yes, I am.
And would you like to tell us where you're going to work?
Yes, so I shall be joining Uber in May. Quite
Okay.
excited for that for my next stint.
And so, what kind of support did you provide? Did ISB provide you, or did you receive from the school in one understanding what career path should you be taking, or what is good for you, and of course, eventually getting in there?
Yeah, so of course, since ISB is a 1 year program and we don't really have a summer internship, it becomes really important to focus on what it is that you want from ISB and where do you want to end up after ISB. So ISB really supports you in doing that. So even before I joined, we were given this 200 question survey about our personality, and we answered that survey and we got like a very detailed description of our personality in terms of strengths, weaknesses. We rated on different aspects like extroversion. So that was the first thing that we got. Other things, they asked us to reach out to our previous employers, ask them to fill certain surveys, and the results of which were given to us. So all of this was part of like an introspection that the school made us do before, during, like, even during our first week at ISP. So there was something that really helps you uh, get started on a path of, let's say, self-discovery. Apart from that, we had this entire course called Leadership and Development, where we were essentially made to make a timeline of our time at ISB, what we want to do, what are our goals, how do we want to achieve it at ISB. So I think all of that sort of makes our thought process very focused.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the initial sort of support that was given to us. Of course, during our entire time, we were kept in touch with alums from our industry, so that we could talk to them, we could tell them about our previous work ex, our current experience at ISP, and what would be our best way forward. So some of my, they would actually advise me what to do, uh, probably which club would give me the most benefit, or any activity that I should undertake, something that I shouldn't do that wouldn't be so helpful because, of course, there's limited time at ISP.
Right.
And then there are all of these club events that introduce you to various aspects of a particular domain. For example, marketing club might introduce you to life in marketing. So all of this sort of helps you make decisions around what you think you're getting yourself into. And of course, closer to placements, we have resume reviews, we have mock interviews, and all of that. So all of that kind of a support is is constantly there from ISB to help you figure out and reach where you want to.
Right. And of course, the entire placement process is very demanding. So this support is
Yeah,
essential.
absolutely.
Great. That's a lot of insight about specific things and specific opportunities that you leverage at ISB. So before we close, would you have any final thoughts for candidates looking to get through the YLP or even the early entry option, which is kind of built on the same model?
Yeah, of course. One thing I would really like to say is that ISP looks at profiles very holistically. So don't get too stuck up on your GMAT or GRE score. Of course, it's important, but do not. It's not a make or break thing. Um, try to present the best version of yourself. Try to present yourself as a as a whole as as holistically as possible. One very important thing that I would recommend is focus on what you bring to ISB in terms of diversity. It could be in terms of your extracurriculars that you've done, in terms of the kind of education you have, any sort of a particular project that you've done. All of that might seem small right now, but all of that together might really make you stand apart and help you get into the school. And finally, like I said before, it's very important to have a clear understanding of your short term and long term goals and how ISP would really fit into that story. So I think focusing on these three things would really help smoothen the journey.
Interesting. And that's certainly a very specific inputs, Agrima. Thank you so much for taking our time. And of course, wish you a great time at Uber and otherwise
Thank you.
for the next few
Thank
months that you have at ISP.
Thank you.
Great. See you then.